When I was kidnapped, Liu Ryan was watching the sunrise with her new lover. She casually said to the kidnappers, "Go ahead, tie him up. No rush to save him. He needs to learn his lesson. Stop bothering me." That's fine. To survive, I had no choice but to cling to the head kidnapper. Begging with a trembling voice, "I'll behave. Please don't kill me." Eventually, Liu Ryan finally thought about coming to rescue me. The head kidnapper laughed, looking down at me, who was unconscious. "He's too exhausted, might not even have the strength to leave with you." The sound of the crashing waves echoed through the loudspeakers in the rundown warehouse. Liu Ryan's voice was indifferent, with a hint of lazy, drunken nonchalance. "Gee, Boda, you've come up with quite a few ways to entangle me these days. Yesterday, you tried to force me into marriage by manipulating my mother. Today, it's a kidnapping stunt. If you want to die, go ahead. Don't delay my time watching the sunrise with my dear." Liu Ryan, I shook my head, eagerly explaining, "I wasn't acting. It wasn't some self-directed play. I don't even know how your mom suddenly announced our engagement to the media. I'm begging you, believe me this once. Please, come save me, okay? Save you, sure." Liu Ryan's voice remained cold, flatly stating, 50 million, right? I'll pay." At these words, the kidnappers spoke up immediately, agreeing right away. 5 hours later, at Dongjiang Bay, exchange money for the person. "Go ahead, tie him up. No rush to save." Liu Ryan's voice was filled with clear contempt and derision. "He needs to learn. Stop bothering me." "That's fine. Consider this money your fee for disciplining him for me." "Are you serious?" The three kidnappers exchanged glances. Liu Ryan let out a cold laugh, a laugh that carried a strange, cruel edge. "As long as you dare to hurt him, I dare to pay." Tears flowed like a broken dam. I closed my eyes in utter despair. "Liu Ryan, so you hate me this much?" "Liu Ryan," tears streaming down my face. I pleaded hopelessly. "I really have been kidnapped. I don't need to be disciplined. If you just come to save me, I promise I'll never bother you again, Sister Liu." Suddenly, the bright sound of laughter echoed through the receiver. A boy's joyful voice exclaimed, "So beautiful," on the other end of the line. The sound of lips parting and the entangled noises of the night could be heard clearly even from this side of the phone. It wasn't hard to imagine how passionate and deep that kiss must have been. Despair wrapped around my heart. My heart felt dead inside. I completely gave up struggling, sitting down on the ground, suddenly staring at the ring on my index finger, the only ring Liu Ryan ever gave me. I laughed out loud. So the promises of youth truly mean nothing. At 16, she swore she'd marry me. Liu Ryan, who vowed to accompany me for a lifetime, changed so much on the road to adulthood. Sorry, Liu Ryan. It was my mistake for stubbornly bothering you all these years. I'm sorry, I won't do it again. I will never do it again. There was a brief silence on the other end of the line. Then, abruptly, the call was hung up. The beeping sound echoed throughout the warehouse. The three kidnappers exchanged a few more glances. The youngest of them scratched his head, looking completely baffled. "Isn't she something, Brother Tia? So does Liu Ryan want to save him or not?" "I don't know, but when she said 'as long as you dare,' it sounded more like a threat to me." The man called Brother Tia gritted his teeth viciously. "Who cares what she means, as long as we get the money? This guy is the Liu family's fiancé from yesterday's news. As long as we record a video of him, we don't have to worry about Liu Ryan not paying up." With that, Brother Tia pulled a white handkerchief out of his pocket, and without any warning, covered my head, pressing it tightly over my nose. A strange scent immediately filled my nostrils, making my head start to spin. Above me, Brother Tian's gritted voice growled, "Stop wasting time." "Who cares?" But Brother Tia, the young one hesitated. "We were only planning to hold him for 2 days. But now Liu Ryan isn't in a hurry to save him. I'm afraid if we keep him too long, what if Miss finds out?" Brother Tia suddenly threw down his cigarette, cursing. "So what if she finds out? Do you really think she plans to help us? Turn over a new leaf? Quit the life of crime? She's just pretending to be the righteous new boss. The Shen family has been in the underworld for so many years. If she really quits, what will she eat? What will she drink? Use your brain. If we do get caught, we'll just hand him over to her to play with. Her methods of taming people are much better than ours. Really? The warehouse door suddenly creaked open. A woman in a black, form-fitting skirt, tall and slender, slowly stepped inside, with several burly bodyguards following behind her. The woman's light-colored eyes swept over them. Her voice was faint. Why not let you try my methods of taming people today? The three kidnappers trembled at her words. Their whole bodies shook. And in unison, they dropped to their knees before the woman. Miss Brother Tia forced a smile, hurriedly pointing at me. We found you a man. Absolutely prime. You see, we've already drugged him. He's ready for use right away. The woman's brow furrowed slightly. Her gaze shifted toward me. A dark gleam flickered in her eyes. Her face was undoubtedly stunning, yet it made every hair on my body stand on end in sheer terror. Even though my body had already started to feel a bit warm, I couldn't help but shiver again, curling my body backward. Seeing this, the woman raised her eyebrows slightly, then walked over, crouching down in front of me. She pulled a folding knife from her pocket. Her cold voice sounded even icier to me than the blade's glint. It might hurt. Bear with it, I'm sending you off. Send me off, no. Don't kill me. The string in my mind snapped completely. A surge of survival instinct fueled my courage. My tied hands quickly clutched hers tightly. I looked at her with tearful eyes, my voice pleading, please, don't kill me. I'll find a way to get you the money. I really don't want to die in these next 2 years. She lowered her gaze. Her eyes scanned over me. Her hand holding the knife paused, a curious arch forming in her brows. Her voice deepened. What's so special about these next 2 years? I couldn't help but glance up. Was this the key point? But I didn't dare not to reply. I answered because ... I lowered my head and whispered, the government just relaxed the two-child policy. But nowadays, young people generally don't want to have kids. So if I die now, there's a high chance I'll be reincarnated into those old families trying for a third child. I've already died young in this life. Haven't enjoyed much yet. Now's not a good time to die. The woman's expression clearly froze for a moment. Her lips pressed together slightly. A faint smile flickered at the corners of her mouth, but I didn't have the mind to notice, because a wave of heat was already surging within me, with a sweeping momentum. In the fear of death, I quickly tallied the chips I had to save my life. Then, with newfound courage, I leaned in, gently kissing the woman's lips. I'll be obedient. I won't resist. You can do whatever you want with me. The entire warehouse fell into a deathly silence. The color of the woman's eyes suddenly darkened. She didn't speak. I bit my lip, barely seeing a glimmer of hope. My bound arms lifted and then fell, wrapping around her neck. Then I kissed her again, but the woman gently gripped my neck, pushed me away, creating some distance between us. Staring into my eyes, deep and unreadable. I wasn't planning to kill you, but if you regret it, now is the time. I could find you another woman to hide with. I won't have a chance to regret it later. The heat wave surged. My eyes were already glazed. I reached out and pulled her into my arms, shaking my head. No regrets with you. If fate destined me not to be treated kindly, at least I should find a beautiful one, right? The next second, my lips and tongue were seized. The woman gripped the back of my head tightly. In the hotel bathroom, the shower poured down relentlessly. The regret and ambiguity only made the temperature climb higher and higher. She pinned me against the wall, like a powerful industrial vacuum cleaner, forcefully plundering. Yet her fingers still had the presence of mind to gently caress the ring on my hand. Her thin lips curled slightly. Already owned by someone, and you still dare to flirt with me? Do you really think I'm some kind of good person? The warm water made it hard for me to open my eyes. My whole body was weakening, nearly collapsing. My consciousness was already blurred. The ring ... No, don't need it anymore. Are you a virgin? She leaned against my chest, seductively whispering. She removed the ring from my finger. If you don't want it, then return it to him. My arms were then released. Shin ... double quotes, she whispered, tracing the letters of my name. She murmured in my ear, if you take me, just know. On a beach chair by the sea, Liu Ryan lay in a man's arms, giving a soft protest at his distracted expression. Then she lowered her head, trying to kiss his lips. But Liu Ryan turned her head away, dodging. She glanced at the phone on the nearby table, the one that hadn't rung again. Her brows furrowed tightly. Boda, if you call again, I'll believe you. She had checked the phone over 20 times in 4 hours. Are you holding back? If you're really worried about him, go check on him. Her friend Ma Zuri, lying on the nearby chair, took in her reaction and couldn't help but shake his head in resignation. Back then, with just a single request, you stirred his heart. Now that you're grown, you turn your back. Really heartless, acting like a rogue who just wants to play games. You find him annoying, clinging to you, controlling you. Over the years, your reputation has spread. Your mom is desperate, trying to force you into marriage through the media. That's normal, right? It might not even be Boda stirring things up. And I've reminded you for the nth time. People's hearts can grow cold. No one will wait for you forever. Do you think the bit of affection you had when you were young, how many more times can you overdraft it? Don't wait until you've truly driven him away to start regretting it. Liu Ryan's fingers paused slightly. She lowered her eyes, remaining silent for a moment, then softly with a cold, dampened voice. I won't regret it. Binding myself to one person for a lifetime is too boring. I wish he would leave quickly and stop clinging to me with those feelings from when he was a teenager. It's really annoying. Xiangzu Tia frowned at her words. Just as he was about to say something more, Liu Ryan didn't want to hear it anymore. She got up and opened a bottle of champagne. The wine sprayed out, blending into the crowd of revelers on the beach. Xiangzu Tian muttered under his breath, cursing, foolish, heartless woman. Suddenly, a shadow cast over them. Xiangzu Tia was momentarily stunned, seeing Liu Ryan returning again. Her gaze was filled with a mix of emotions. With a cold expression, Liu Ryan picked up her phone, just as she unlocked the screen. The ringtone rang first. Ryan, yeah, it's a call from Liu Ryan's assistant. Something was just couriered urgently. Sent to the company for you. Boda, she muttered. Liu Ryan's face instantly turned cold. Her eyes filled with disdain. Suddenly feeling that her earlier concern for Boda was utterly foolish. It was a ring, the assistant said. I looked at the assistant and paused. It looks like the one Boda always wore. Liu Ryan's pupils suddenly constricted. Say that again. What? The assistant quickly sent over a photo of the ring. Liu Ryan took one glance and immediately recognized it. It was the engagement ring he gave her when he confessed at 16. Boda had always treasured it, wearing it on his finger. An indescribable feeling surged in Liu Ryan's heart, but it was quickly drowned by anger. She coldly typed rapidly in the chat box. Can't carry on with your self-directed kidnapping drama? Now you're using this tactic to try and play hard to get? Boda, the ring has been returned. You and I are truly done. Don't bother me again in the future. After sending the message, the group chat was as silent as a stone dropped into the sea. The chat box, which always had instant replies, remained silent. Feeling irritated, Liu Ryan scrolled up. The chat history was filled with Boda's one-sided messages of concern. A cold smile tugged at the corner of her lips. Of course, Boda couldn't possibly not like me. If he made it this far, it was just another act, determined to teach him a lesson. Liu Ryan simply turned off her phone, deciding to deny him the chance to regret and make amends. Then she suddenly stood up, shaking the champagne bottle violently. The froth sprayed everywhere. Liu Ryan smashed the bottle onto the ground. laughing wildly and unrestrainedly. "Today I'm in a great mood. Come, let's drink." The next day, when I woke up, Shen Yachu was no longer in the room. This was the first time I'd been kidnapped, so I had no idea what the protocol was after sleeping with the kidnapper's leader. Should I keep waiting for someone to come with ransom money? Or was I supposed to be his for life now? Or maybe seeing the empty room? With my hands and feet no longer bound, I wondered if I could just try walking away. Clothes were scattered all over the floor. My shirt had been torn to shreds. I tiptoed toward the door, when suddenly a voice came from the balcony behind me. "Shen Liuchu's. They're your loyal ones, not mine. As far as I'm concerned, they just won't obey me. Still loyal to your old imperial court. Breaking them would be letting them off easy." As he spoke, the balcony door swung open. Shen Yachu stepped out without noticing me standing by the door. He slightly moved the phone away from his ear. It seemed the person on the other end was cursing rather nastily. Shen Yachu's smile grew colder. "Father, don't forget, Shen Corporation is under my rule now. If they dare break my golden rules, even if I scatter their ashes, you'd better not have a temper about it." He didn't wait for a response, and directly hung up the call. His gaze shifted slightly, and he immediately spotted me. After a few seconds of stunned silence, his previously gloomy eyes took on a subtle hint of amusement. "Planning to run after sleeping with me?" Frightened, I shook my head quickly. No, I wasn't planning to run. At this moment, I suddenly remembered Shen Yachu's identity. The top underworld dealer in the imperial capital. All his dealings were dangerous, blood-soaked trades. Having provoked a man like him, there was no hope for anything good. Obedience was the only way to stay alive. Shen Yachu raised an eyebrow and started walking toward me, step by step, closing in, until I was pressed against the door. With no way to retreat, his gaze swept over my chest. His expression darkened. "The entrance is full of bodyguards. You plan to leave dressed like this? It looks like you're not trying to escape, but trying to get yourself killed." I could only lower my head and softly negotiate with him. "My parents are researchers. They spend years in remote mountains without any signal. They have a high social status, but not much money, so it might take a long time for them to find out and pay my ransom." Shen Yachu paused for a moment, then laughed. "Stay with me. You won't lack money." I hesitated at his words. If there's no ransom, does that mean I have to stay with him forever? This is my first time with someone. I don't know how this works. Do I have to stay here all the time? But before I could finish, my lips were suddenly kissed. Shen Yachu lifted his head gently, planting soft kisses at the corners of my lips. His thin lips curved with a smile. "Do you know how to date?" I froze, blinking in confusion. Shen Yachu chuckled softly against my lips. "We'll follow the steps of dating." Liu Ryan finally turned her phone on 3 days later. 3 days of wild, chaotic revelry. The whole villa looked like it had been hit by a typhoon. Only a mess of cups and plates remained, and the lingering scent of indulgence and decay. Even her phone had to be fished out from between the couch cushions. Liu Ryan pressed the power button, leaning back on the sofa, waiting for the messages to come through. The notification sounds chimed one after another. All these messages must be from G Boater. Every single day, he has to send me messages over the smallest things. So annoying, this time his long texts will probably flood the screen. The notifications finally stopped. Liu Ryan reached out and tapped the screen. Just as a call came through, she accidentally answered it. Seeing the caller ID, she guessed it was probably G Boda's mother, called in to act as a mediator again. Liu Ryan frowned. Just as she was about to speak, his mother's anxious voice came through first. "Daughter, have you been able to reach Boda? He hasn't replied to my messages for 3 days. Did something happen?" The remaining 7/10 of her drunkenness immediately vanished. Liu Ryan sat up straight from the sofa in an instant. Her brows furrowed even tighter. "I can't reach him." Suddenly, a flash of memory hit her, the kidnapping call from 3 days ago. Is Boda still playing games? Liu Ryan pursed her lips. With a grim face, she pressed the dial button, her heart filled with an indescribable mix of emotions. A sense of panic, yes, but more so an overwhelming annoyance and anger. This time, Boda has really gone too far. Hello, the call connected quickly, but the voice that answered was a deep, lazy woman's voice. Liu Ryan's expression froze instantly. Her heart plummeted. 3 a.m. Boda's phone was answered by a woman. These two realizations fused into the fact of his kidnapping. Panic swept over her heart in an instant. Liu Ryan clenched her fist tightly. Her voice strained. Where is Boda? Let him answer the phone. You didn't hurt him, did you? Give me the address. I'm coming over right now. The woman on the other end of the phone paused for a moment. It seemed like she chuckled, but she didn't say much else. Only spoke softly and gently. Just forget it for today. He's been drained dry by me. Even if you bring in the Emperor himself to help, he may not have the strength to go with you. Liu Ryan suddenly stood up, her eyes filled with a visible tremor. Almost in the next second, she shouted in fury, kicking over the coffee table in front of her. Her eyes were bloodshot. You touched him, didn't you? Who the hell gave you permission to touch him? Didn't I say I'd pay? Everyone in the villa was stunned. It was as if someone had pressed the pause button. No one dared to move. They just stood there, staring blankly, seeing Liu Ryan's eyes turn red in an instant, her gaze filled with a terrifying intent to kill. She took several deep breaths, finally managing to suppress some of her emotions, wiping her face. How do I pay? On the other end, Shen Yachu glanced down at the sleeping man, suddenly remembering his aggrieved expression when he said he had no money to give earlier that afternoon. A slight smile tugged at his lips. 50 million, just transfer it to his account. I found out I had been ransomed only the next morning. Shen Yachu stood by the bedside, slowly fastening the strap of her bra, her expression calm, casually handing me my phone, which had been fully charged. It was fixed and returned last night. You fell asleep in the middle of the night. I answered a call from your ex-girlfriend for you and got you 50 million in pocket money. My pupils dilated suddenly. I took the phone from him in a daze. Seeing over 100 missed calls on the screen, I was completely stunned. They were all from Liu Ryan. Shen Yachu clearly saw the number as well, raising an eyebrow slightly. Maybe I'm just too good at conversation. He seemed quite pleased with himself. This is what you call pleased? Shen Yachu bent down, picking up his dress and slipping it on. The form-fitting skirt hugged his curves, making my face involuntarily flush with heat. Memories of the past few days' indulgence and intimacy flooded my mind. Shen Yachu noticed my reaction and smiled. He pressed a soft kiss on my lips. Be good. Don't tempt me, or it won't end well. My face instantly turned bright red. Shen Yachu gently touched my chest, raising an eyebrow calmly. Go back and give my regards to your ex. No wonder she's a big shot. Quite generous. Then, with a hint of seriousness, he added, but if you dare rekindle any old feelings, I'll scatter both your ashes. Those 3 kidnappers were dealt with, but since they were under Shen Yachu's command, if things get complicated, it could cause some trouble. So it wasn't convenient for him to see me off. I ended up taking a taxi back on my own. I didn't go back to my own home. Instead, I went to visit Liu Ryan's mother first. My parents' work nature is what it is. They're away for long periods. So I was mostly raised by Liu Ryan, under Aunt Liu's care. I'm fine, really, I'm home, I reassured. Aunt Liu's eyes were red as she held my hand, her face filled with guilt. Liu Ryan sat silently on the sofa opposite, uncharacteristically quiet. But ever since I walked in, she had been staring at me, her dark, bloodshot eyes filled with a chilling intensity. And Liu called her twice. Seeing no reaction, she just ignored her and apologized to me. Boda, it's Andy's fault. I'm sorry. I only thought about pushing that stubborn girl Ryan to hurry up and marry you. I didn't think it would lead to you being targeted by kidnappers. Thank goodness, they were only after money. But what if? What happened to you? How could I ever face your parents? Suddenly, the sofa made a loud noise. Liu Ryan, who had been silent until now, suddenly stood up, as if some word had triggered her. She abruptly got up from the sofa, grabbed me, and started pulling me upstairs. Her hand was cold, like ice. Liu Ryan seemed to ignore all the words around her, dragging me all the way up to the second floor, forcefully pushing me into a guest bathroom, locking the door behind her. Her voice was urgent, but her fingers were trembling slightly. Take a shower. Liu Ryan, are you out of your mind? I was completely bewildered, shrugging her off and heading for the door. I'm clean. Why the hell should I shower? But Liu Ryan yanked me back again. She stared at me with an expression as if she had a deep-seated vendetta. What about him? I asked unintentionally. Who? Liu Ryan's forehead veins bulged. Every mention of his name seemed to be filled with immense fury. The kidnapper who answered the phone last night. I couldn't help but laugh, breaking free from her grip. Isn't there a possibility that he was actually the one who saved me, not the kidnapper? Liu Ryan, caught between anger and disbelief, let out a bitter laugh, almost gritting her teeth. Saved you? Bed? Does saving you require touching you? To be honest, I had no idea why Liu Ryan was so furious now. Is it that hard to guess? I let out a mocking laugh. I was kidnapped, not on vacation. If I wasn't tormented half to death, I should already consider myself lucky, right? Fortunately, the kidnapper's leader was Shen Yuchu. Fortunately, he showed up that day. Fortunately, he did touch me. As soon as I finished speaking, Liu Ryan froze for a few seconds, then quickly realized the implication of my words. Her expression suddenly broke. Her anger shattered, and was replaced by a murky look in her eyes. I didn't think it was real. I thought you were just acting. I assumed they were people you hired to force a marriage. If I had known ... her with a sigh, recalling the events of that day. But there was a deathly calm in my heart. You didn't know? Weren't you the one who said you'd pay 50 million as a thank you fee for them to help discipline me? What could have been a simple kidnapping resolved with money turned into a lesson for me because of your words? If I hadn't been rescued ... by now, I'm probably completely ruined. Filmed in countless humiliating videos, right? Congratulations, Liu Ryan. I've really learned my lesson. I will never cling to you again. Liu Ryan's expression froze. Her eyes took on a dull, ashen color, like a fire completely extinguished by water. Her cheeks twitched slightly, as if she were gritting her teeth. After a long silence, she finally seemed to convince herself, and with great difficulty opened her mouth. Forget it, Boder. Forget this kidnapping. Forget that woman. Forget both of you. The phone trembled against Liu Ryan's lips, but she couldn't bring herself to say the second half of the sentence. She took a deep breath. Her tone softened considerably. Let's just pretend none of it ever happened. If you still want to marry me, fine, except for love and fidelity. I can give you everything else. For a moment, I even wondered if I was hearing things. Did Liu Ryan just say something reasonable? Did she forget that she was the one who first approached me? That she confessed her feelings to me? Proposed to me when she was 16, not 6, and now that she's grown up, she dismisses it casually, making it seem like I'm the one chasing her. She never thought about how I, who had been drawn in and fell in love with her, could ever reclaim the heart I gave away, like a stray dog that had been adopted and then abandoned. Pitiful, yet finding it hard to return to a life of wandering. In the end, defeated by the desperate longing for love, turning around, chasing after its owner's footsteps, with a wagging tail, begging to regain the warmth it once had. Sometimes this dog would wonder, maybe it would have been better if I were never adopted, if you had never come to provoke me. But it's too late now. Anger, frustration, and all kinds of emotions intertwined, leaving only a sense of helplessness brought upon myself. I lowered my gaze, smiling calmly. Don't force yourself. I've already given up. I won't like you anymore. and I won't bother you again. So there's no need for such a big sacrifice. It's all in the past now. From now on, you can go and live your carefree life. I meant every word sincerely, but Liu Ryan seemed even more dissatisfied with my compliance. A flicker of inexplicable panic crossed her eyes. Her tone quickly turned mocking and irritated. Sounds nice, not clinging to me. Do you believe that yourself? Can you really do it? If you can't, don't force it. I never said I wanted you to disappear from my world. I just can't give you love. My gaze fell on my ring finger, where a ring had once always been. But it had only been 3 days since I took it off, and even the mark had almost faded away. Just like how I held onto the past, unwilling to let go or give up. Saying I give up took only a moment. Liu Ryan, I can do it. Liu Ryan's eyes narrowed suddenly. She stared at me intently for a few seconds, then seemed to make up her mind. I'm sure you will. She smirked in a way that seemed almost mocking. You better be. I have to be. Suddenly, Shen Yachu's face flashed in my mind. I smiled, or else I might just end up having my ashes scattered. After that day, I kept my promise, putting as much distance as possible between Liu Ryan and myself, no longer sending him interesting things at any time and place, nor paying attention to whether he was being flirtatious or intimate with anyone else. And I stopped appearing in front of him without any reason. I even skipped gatherings with mutual friends where he would be present. During this time, Aunt Liu noticed my distance and sent me a few messages. But after a few tries, she realized my stance and sighed quietly. It seems we were never destined to be family. A little over a month later, on Christmas Day, Mazuri came back. Seeing me calmly guiding students in my pottery studio, she mischievously raised an eyebrow and smiled. Boda, are you serious this time? You reckless, foolish woman, I scoffed, glancing at her. Why aren't you at home with your husband on such a big holiday? Why are you hanging around here? If you're not careful, your hard-won husband might run off again. Mazuri's smile instantly vanished. She casually picked up a small lump of clay and lightly tossed it at me, then clapped her hands as if nothing had happened, hopped down from the chair, and placed a handwritten invitation on the table. The neat handwriting on the pink paper was unmistakably hers, a small calligraphy style, obviously written by herself. It's our 3rd wedding anniversary. Anyway, Ryan will definitely come. You can decide whether you want to come or not. I'd understand if you don't. With that, Mazuri picked up the bouquet of roses beside her, gave me a nod, indicating she was about to leave. Just as she reached the door, she stopped, turned around and looked at me. Boda, he actually does have feelings for you. In this past month, he seems carefree, one new lover after another. But honestly, he's often just staring at his phone, daydreaming, waiting for your messages. I'm not lying for him. I just can't bear to see your years of persistence finally reaching a point where the clouds part and the moon appears, only to miss the chance like this. So I'm just saying a few words. No matter what you decide, I'll support you. If you want a fresh start, I'll introduce you to someone new right away. Suddenly, the shop door was pulled open from outside. The bell chimed with a crisp sound. Shen Yachu, dressed in a black down jacket, walked in with snowflakes clinging to him. Excuse me. Shen Yachu spoke softly, his voice quiet. Mazuri was staring at his face, stunned, then quickly stepped aside, mumbling an apology. But before leaving, she glanced back at Shen Yachu, a puzzled look in her eyes, as if trying to remember where she had seen him before. It's snowing. I raised my eyebrows, looking outside, and smiled. Snow on Christmas. How fitting. Shen Yachu nodded. He didn't say anything, but while the students were all looking outside at the snow, he came over, bent down, and quickly kissed me. His lips were cold as ice, but it shocked me enough to widen my eyes. I playfully punched him lightly, giving him a fierce look. What are you doing? People are still around. But Shen Yechu just smirked and raised an eyebrow, looking completely justified. As your girlfriend, who you're secretly hiding? Stealing kisses is my basic right. To prevent your friend from introducing someone new, I'm not hiding anything. We've been openly dating for over a month. It's just that I've been avoiding Liu Ryan's people recently, so not many people know about it. The clock on the wall chimed, marking 6 o'clock. I tilted my head toward Shen Yechu and announced to the students that class was over. By the time the last student was picked up by their parents, the sky had completely darkened. Festival lights glowed on the street, complemented by the falling snow, adding a touch of romance to the scene. Shen Yechu hugged me from behind, leaning close to whisper in my ear. With the mood set like this, want to sneak out for a date? I rolled my eyes at my persistent boyfriend. 10 o'clock at night. I updated my normally quiet social media feed. Merry Christmas! Along with a cheeky note about a certain someone demanding an official announcement of our sneaky date. The picture showed our hands tightly clasped together. Mazuri finally remembered who Shen Yechu was. Shen Yechu, at 25, was the youngest to take over the Shen family business. On the same day, she announced her intention to overthrow her father's underworld empire and declared her withdrawal from the shady dealings, forbidding the entire Shen family from any involvement in illegal activities, single-handedly. In just 6 months, she propelled the Shen family to rank among the top 15 reputable enterprises in the imperial capital. A person with such a turbulent, blood-stained background, how could she end up at Jibota's little escape studio? My phone buzzed. Suddenly, the group chat exploded with messages. Whoa, Jibota made it official. And I noticed something important. The background of them holding hands is a bed, 10 p.m. at night. Does that mean they're living together? Is it with Ryan? No, last night Ryan was at my place, drinking in silence. Seemed like she was waiting for someone's message, staring at her phone all night. The chat fell silent for a few seconds. Then someone quietly posted, could it be Jibota? The message hung awkwardly, stopping at that last line, in the chat box. No one said anything further. Mazuri felt a heavy weight in her chest. She quickly exited the chat, scrolled through Jibota's social media feed, and after seeing the ring on his index finger, she gasped sharply. The foolish playboy finally sealed his fate. The day after Christmas was a weekend. The escape studio remained closed. I left Shen Yechu's place, and instead of heading home, I made a deliberate stop at the mall. Picked out a gift for Mazuri and her husband to celebrate their 3rd anniversary, and bought a necklace for someone to make up for the missed Christmas present. The elevator doors opened to the floor of my apartment, and then opened outward. Just as I raised my head to step out, a dark figure suddenly lunged toward me. My body was forcefully pushed against the elevator wall. I cried out in pain, but it was muffled by a kiss. The heavy scent of alcohol filled my nose. Liu Ryan, with bloodshot eyes, cupped my face, kissing my lips almost in a biting manner. The pain made me frown deeply. I pushed against Liu Ryan's shoulders with all my strength, and just as his tongue forcefully pried open my lips, I bit down hard. Liu Ryan yelped in pain, finally releasing me. I didn't dare to stay for a second. I took a step and started running, but I had barely taken a step outside when my wrist was grabbed. I won't eat you, damn it. What are you running for? Liu Ryan held onto me tightly, shouting angrily. I swung my hand, throwing all the gift boxes I was holding at his head. So, were you just losing your mind? Liu Ryan kicked the scattered gifts across the floor, his chest heaving violently, his gaze locked firmly on my ring finger, as if in the next moment, he would pounce on me and bite through my neck. Where were you last night? Why didn't you come back all night? I felt completely bewildered. Where I go doesn't seem to concern you anymore. Liu Ryan's body trembled violently. He wiped his face with his hand, his eyes fierce. Who is he? Why does that sound so familiar? I raised my head, looking at him calmly. He didn't answer. But Liu Ryan seemed to realize it himself. His face turned deathly pale. Whether from drunkenness or something else, his body swayed slightly, and he propped himself against the wall. Did he force you? No, we're just together, that's all. Liu Ryan closed his eyes. Beneath them, a look of collapse. Break up with him. Aren't you the one who wanted to be with me? Alright, let's be together. You break it off with him. I can pretend like nothing ever happened. After speaking, Liu Ryan sighed softly, as if finally surrendering to some invisible force. Boda, you win. I've missed you a lot during this time. Once we're together, I won't have anyone else again. I understand my feelings for you now. He thought my public declaration last night was just a tactic to provoke him. Liu Ryan, I'm not like you. I know my own heart. I like you. So I pursued you openly. I would never be childish enough to use someone else to win or lose in love. Liu Ryan's face turned deathly pale in an instant. Her fingers curled inward, but never clenched into a fist. Her eyes reddened. She gave a smile filled with extreme embarrassment. Impossible, you clearly liked me so much. How could you be with someone else so soon? I pulled my lips into a smile, my tone laced with sarcasm. Oh, that youthful affection, how could it ever be real? Not wanting to argue with him anymore, I finished speaking and walked to my door to open it. The doorbell immediately rang out. Just as I opened the door, a trembling voice sounded from behind. Then can I start loving you again from now? This time, let it be me who chases you. I turned back slowly, my eyes filled with disbelief. Where were you earlier? And now you want to play this game with me? Starting over from scratch? Liu Ryan's face took on a grayish hue, suddenly looking so lost and overwhelmed that she didn't know what to do. Back then, I just hadn't fallen in love with you yet. Or maybe I just didn't realize that I loved you. Ma Zuri was right. He's truly embarrassed himself, always saying he'd never regret. But when he saw the photo of you holding someone else's hand, he just wanted to tear that woman apart. Because you are his Boda, always there, just behind him. As long as he turned around, you'd be there. How did Boda get taken away by someone else halfway through? And now, he can't get him back. What kind of adult doesn't even know what they truly want? It's just playing deaf and blind, feeling invincible. All those excuses about not knowing how to love are just what fools use to cover up their own greed. In the elevator, Shen Yachu was standing there at some point, arms crossed, leaning against the wall, wearing a beige hoodie and black sweatpants, looking somehow assertive in a strange way. When Liu Ryan saw Shen Yachu's face, her eyes suddenly narrowed. A clear sense of danger flashed in her gaze. It was obvious she had already connected the Shen Yachu before her with the person who had provoked her on the phone that night. So it was you, Shen Yachu. Liu Ryan muttered, her tone tense. Shen Yachu smirked, holding up two fingers in a peace sign against her forehead. Hello, lover who only regrets after losing. Liu Ryan's face instantly darkened, but Shen Yachu seemed completely oblivious to her gloom. Her gaze casually swept over the scattered mess on the ground, and finally rested on the necklace that had been thrown out. She looked up at me, her eyes filled with amusement. Is that my Christmas present? I puffed my cheeks in annoyance. No, I muttered, trying to sound tough. But Shen Yachu, still stubborn, quickly bent down and picked up the necklace, put it around her neck, then walked over to me, her expression calm. You put it on for me. I rolled my eyes at her, pulling her into the house. The door closed behind us. I didn't look back, but I could still hear the faint sound of a defeated sigh behind me. Under a subtle hint from a certain interrogation master, I ended up attending Ma Zuri and her husband's party. As soon as Shen Yachu stepped out of the car in her eye-catching dress, she immediately drew everyone's attention. Ma Zuri approached with a warm smile, extending her hand. Hello, Shen Yachu. Shen Yachu took her hand, returning the smile just as kindly. But what she said next made me want to cover my face in embarrassment. Yes, you think my necklace is pretty, don't you? Jibota made it public when he announced I'm his girlfriend. It's a declaration gift. Shenyachu, you're really good at making conversation. And you really hold a grudge. Mazuri probably still didn't know that this was all because of her words on Christmas, saying she'd introduce me to someone new. As the party continued, more and more people arrived. The place became lively, with Shenyachu's status. Even if she wanted to stay low-key, she couldn't avoid being pulled into socializing. I found a quiet corner, eating tiramisu, watching Mazuri hold her husband's hand on stage, crying like a fool. It was quite moving, really. Mazuri's ex was also quite a big deal. Chasing her husband back was like walking through a crematorium, but somehow she really did win him back. Suddenly, a shadow stood beside me. I didn't turn my head, but I knew who it was. I had expected to see him here today. Compared to that day, reeking of alcohol, Liu Ryan had dressed up decently today. But the weirdness on his face and the bloodshot eyes revealed that he hadn't been doing well lately. Boda! Liu Ryan called my name with difficulty. Looking at the couple embracing on stage, he raised his hand towards me. A ring lay in the palm of his hand. Because of how tightly he had been gripping it earlier, there were marks on his palm. Let's get married too. Please, I'm sorry I was late to that proposal. After all these years, I won't disappoint you again. I will treat you well. There will only be you in this lifetime. I put down the fork in my hand, lost my appetite, reached out and took the ring that I had once worn on my finger. Seeing the light return to his eyes, I turned around and opened the French windows. The ring traced an arc through the air, finally landing in the pool. Liu Ryan's body swayed. His already pale face lost even more color. His lips trembled. He stuttered, Jibota. I was wrong. I truly realize my mistake now. In the past, I didn't know how to cherish you. It was my stupidity, but I've changed now. Let me chase you again. But you've blocked me. Liu Ryan still couldn't bear to think about the despair he felt when he realized his messages had been deleted yesterday. Just when he had finally found a way and saw a glimmer of hope, that red exclamation mark shattered his already fragile expectations. Jibota, I'm not asking you to forgive me right now, or accept me, but at least give me a chance, okay? Give me a way to make it up to you, a path to pursue you again. Turn left when you go out. Shenyachu's mocking voice suddenly cut in. I hadn't even processed it yet, when my hand instinctively went around her waist. Shenyachu, with a possessive stance, held my hand tightly, raised her eyebrows provocatively at Liu Ryan. Consider this your trip to the crematorium. I'll help you collect your ashes when it's over. With Liu Ryan causing such a scene, it didn't feel right for Shenyachu and me to stay any longer, not wanting to ruin the party. So we said our goodbyes and left early. Not heading home? I glanced at Shenyachu as she looked down to check the GPS, feeling a bit puzzled. Nope, I'm in a good mood today. Taking you to the beach to watch the sunrise. I almost believed Shenyachu's excuse of watching the sunrise. But she didn't mention that. Before we even got to the sunrise, the time would be spent in the car, caught up in a moment of intense passion. Shenyachu lifted my hand. And then I felt a brief cold sensation on my ring finger. A fleeting chill. My mind cleared for just 1 second, only to be swept away again as our fingers intertwined tightly. Mazuri's call came in just as dawn was breaking that day. Shenyachu was leaning against my chest, her voice still heavy with sleep. What's up, Mazuri? But it wasn't Mazuri on the other end. It was our mutual friend, Jibota. Come see Ryan, he said. He spent hours trying to fish out the ring you threw away. He was diving in the swimming pool for hours. It's the middle of winter, no one can withstand that. He passed out as soon as he got out of the water. He's in the hospital now, running a fever so high he's practically delirious. Come on, you two were childhood friends. You grew up together. At least come and see him. Hearing this, I pressed my lips together, then asked calmly, is he awake? If he's conscious, put him on the phone. There was silence on the other end for several seconds. Then came Liu Ryan's weak, hoarse voice, choked with tears. I found the ring. Can I come see you? Liu Ryan, I began slowly, cutting him off. You sure have a lot of ways to keep bothering me now. Stop doing these pointless things. Don't interrupt my sunrise with Shen Yachu. The other end of the line went abruptly silent. I paused too, because just then, as I glanced down, I saw the diamond ring on my ring finger. In the light of the suddenly emerging sun, it sparkled with a dazzling brilliance. I reached out and wrapped my arm around Shen Yachu's waist, pulling her closer into my embrace. With my other hand, I gently touched the diamond ring. In a low voice, I murmured, "With my ring on your finger, you're locked in for life. If you dared to run from me." A smile curled at the corner of my mouth. "I raise my eyebrows and give you the ashes."